Skull Island, a land shrouded in mystery and danger, and is perhaps the most famous fictional island to have ever been created. And it's not hard to see why, as it is well known for being home to some pretty legendary creatures, such as the V-Rex, Pteranodon, and of course, King Kong, the island's resident giant ape. And such a place is obviously surreal to think about, let alone imagine what it would be like if it actually truly existed. But what if I told you that no matter how fake Skull Island is, it was actually heavily based on a very real place? Yes, there is an island on the planet right now that was a major source of inspiration for Skull Island. And while I can't promise you'll find any building-sized primates here, I can promise that there are some pretty crazy animals found nearly nowhere else. And this would be Komodo Island. It is just one of the over 17,000 islands that make up Indonesia. And it's not even the largest, being more of a medium-sized one that's roughly about 291 square kilometers, making it just a tad bit smaller than the Maldives. And from the sky, it's a pretty unassuming place, with the island largely being characterized by a hot and dry savanna vegetation. Well, then there are also pockets of rainforest too, namely deciduous forests in the upper lands, and mangroves, while obviously beaches stretch out far along the coastlines. Now, these traits alone do not make the island that unique of a place. Well, maybe slightly. But what really is different about it is what actually lives here. And this story actually began back in the early 1900s, when reports from Western sailors in the area started to trickle in of an animal that seemed too strange to be real, as it was being described by some as a land crocodile, while others made claims of having encountered a dragon on a remote island. Now, all of these statements came from casual sailors, who were known to exaggerate details sometimes, but nevertheless, the sheer amount of reports coming in generated quite a bit of buzz, leading to one Dutch lieutenant, Stein van Hensbroek, deciding to lead an expedition of his own to this island, which was located in the Lesser Sunda chain. And in the early 1910s he arrived, where he found one of the most mysterious animals on Earth, a lizard unlike anything else. And that would of course be Varanus komodoensis, also known as the Komodo dragon. And while it is not a real dragon, sorry y'all, it is a monster of an animal, being the planet's largest living lizard by a landslide, with males growing up to 3 meters or 10 feet long, and weighing up to 150 kilos or 330 pounds. In other words, a lizard that outweighs both jaguars and leopards. And here on the Komodo Island, it is the undisputed king, just as King Kong rules Skull Island. And this is thanks to a variety of features that go well past its size, all making these dragons highly lethal predators capable of taking down prey considerably larger than themselves. For starters, every Komodo has thick skin that is reinforced by armored scales that are chock full of tiny bones called osteoderms that protect its body, with only minimal parts of its head lacking protection. And this in itself makes them very hard to stop in their tracks, which is not good, as fighting one, even if they did not have armor, would be problematic, let's say, seeing that these lizards come equipped with some of the most wicked teeth in the entire animal kingdom. To be exact, these guys all possess what are known as xiphidon teeth, meaning that they're sharp like a blade, laterally compressed, and have serrated edges on both sides, turning them into a biological steak knife of sorts. And this design is actually pretty similar to what's seen in large theropods. Yes, those theropods, the dinosaurs, that used to dominate Earth millions of years ago. And like the giant theropods, these teeth allow the Komodo dragon to easily slice through thick hides and flesh. And they don't have to be gentle during the process either, as each tooth possesses a thin, iron-enriched coating on the tips and serrations that maintain their sharpness long term. On top of this, not only are they coated in this iron-rich material, but the teeth also replace extremely fast, with each tooth having 5 replacements ready to go at any time, with the average tooth seemingly replacing about once every 40 days. So in other words, even if it was an old Komodo dragon that was attacking you, don't bank on dull teeth. So as you can see, the dragon's teeth are only bad news for prey. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter to a degree what the teeth do to you or any other animal, be it 1, 2, or multiple bites. And the reason for this is that a Komodo's bite is dangerous even after the teeth are no longer stuck in your flesh. Now, it used to be thought that these guys had some serious dental hygiene issues that led to them delivering massive amounts of bacteria into wounds with each bite, and thus leading to fatal infections. But this is no longer thought to be the case, or at least not only the case, as new research has instead found that the Komodo dragon is actually venomous, and that it has an anticoagulant property in its saliva, meaning you don't stop bleeding easily. And thus, a single bite can possibly render you immobile, even if the bite in itself was not fatal. But with that said, it's almost never just one bite either, as avoiding a second bite is extremely hard to say the least, as on top of the lingering effects of being chased down by a giant lizard, bitten by it, and the saliva going to work, you also have to deal with their powerful arms and giant claws that are often used to pin prey down, which in many cases, by the way, are just as large as people. And actually a few times it has literally been a human, as over the years, despite their smaller numbers, there have been fatal attacks on people. And this is partially due to the fact that there is a permanent settlement of about 1,800 people on the island. And while the Komodos for the most part stay away from them and structures, they have at times attacked unprovoked, namely individuals that have lost their fear of humans, resulting in about 24 documented attacks over the years, with 5 of them actually having been fatal. And out of these 24, there is one particularly unsettling story in which the victim actually survived, and involved a park ranger who was attacked by one of these dragons inside his hut, as supposedly a cleaner left the door open accidentally. And thus, overnight, the animal snuck in and then proceeded to hide under his desk. So then when he sat down, bam! Now there was a dragon latched onto his leg. In the ensuing scuffle, his legs, hands, and arms were all bit up. But what was really frightening is that even though the attack happened fast, by the time it ended, other dragons had appeared in the building, as if by magic, looking to hop in on the fun. But thankfully for the ranger, other rangers had arrived too, and they were helping to keep them at bay. But this story goes to show just another reason why Komodos are so deadly, and that is that they mob prey. Now, they aren't necessarily social animals, but they all have extremely powerful senses of smell thanks to their Jacobson's organ, which allows them to detect carrion and blood from up to 9.5 kilometers or 6 miles away, leading them to occasionally all run and attack the same creature, with reports of sometimes up to 20 dragons being involved in one attack, resulting in vicious, gory feeding frenzies that are so violent that even they themselves can suffer traumatic amputations in the mosh pit, so to speak. What this also means is that if you get a cut on this island, then there is a real chance that every Komodo dragon in a pretty substantial area is making a beeline straight for you, which is not exactly a pleasant thought. So at this point, it shouldn't be too hard to see how these guys are the island's apex predator. And not only that, but they essentially run a monopoly here, being unchallenged by pretty much any other endemic predator. Despite the name Komodo Island, these guys are naturally found on 4 other islands as well: Rinca, Gili Moteng, Gili Dasami, and Flores. However, the Komodo Island does remain their stronghold, with the place being home to over 1,700 specimens, more than any other island. And like I said in the beginning, and it was this bizarre lizard that heavily influenced the franchise we love today, King Kong, as Marion C. Cooper, the creator of Kong, would find himself inspired by an American expedition to the island in 1926, led by William Burden, who spent a lot of time recording footage of the lizards and also brought back specimens to the US, including 2 living Komodo dragons that were sent to a Bronx zoo. And unsurprisingly, this endeavor captivated many Americans, including Cooper, who also happened to be a personal friend of Burden's, who himself recounted many stories of adventure, which in turn was the inspiration behind Cooper riding King Kong. And when you think about it, the movie does share a lot of similarities to the real expedition, as both are essentially about a strange creature from an isolated island being captured and turned to an exhibit in New York. And actually, it was originally planned for a gorilla to fight a Komodo dragon at the end of the original film, but this never materialized. Additionally, another fun fact is that these dragons might have inspired the giant ape's name too, as Cooper had a fascination with the letter K and really liked how Komodo sounded. So who knows, perhaps if these lizards were never found, the theaters today would look a little bit different. Ultimately though, while an integral part to Komodo Island, these large predators are just one piece of the food chain. There's a lot more, including the Komodo's favorite food items, which include the Javan rusa, a large insular deer, and then the formidable water buffalo. Originating from the Indian subcontinent, this bovid is the largest terrestrial animal on the entire island, and is actually the second largest bovid worldwide, with males weighing up to 1.2 tons, which also makes them far larger than their domesticated counterparts. Their large bodies are absolutely roped in muscle, and it makes them pretty tough, even if a Komodo can somehow take them down. But what really makes them dangerous besides just their size and bodybuilder-like build are those large, robust, and sharp curved horns that can measure nearly 14 feet or 4.2 meters from tip to tip. So basically longer than an elephant is tall, and gives them the longest horns of any animal on Earth. And let me tell you, they are not afraid to use said horns. Because while the domesticated water buffalo is pretty chill, the wild ones are not, being highly aggressive and possibly responsible for killing hundreds of people per year. And rangers from Komodo Island, with current reports being that these large bovids number about 400 on the island. Now, with this said, not everything here is big or deadly, as you also had crab-eating macaques, banded pigs, boars, bats, a myriad of birds, and rodents. On top of that, snakes do tend to be a thing here too, many of which are regrettably quite venomous, including the Javan spitting cobra, Russell's viper, pit vipers, and sea kraits, all things that could kill you very, very easily. Yet while snakes are a frequent sight on Komodo Island, it is still in the end a lizard's domain. As besides the Komodo dragon, you also have various other lizards too, with geckos for one being extremely abundant and widespread. Well, then there are also additional kinds of monitor lizards too, besides just the Komodo dragon. And though none are quite as large or deadly, some are pretty impressive in their own right, like the Asian water monitor, which is considered the second largest lizard species on Earth, with the big individuals being about the weight of a medium-sized dog, while then the absolute largest are nearly 50 kilos or 110 pounds, and have been known to eat everything from fish and frogs to small deers and juvenile crocodiles. So they are to be respected. And then of course, like I said, just like Skull Island, humans live here too, with there being about 1,800 full-time residents that primarily reside within the harbor town of Komodo Village. Once upon a time, an endemic group of people known as the Komodo people lived here as well, but since the 1980s, they are considered extinct, with the current population being made up of descendants of convicts sentenced to the island who have mingled with the Bugumese people. And unsurprisingly, because I would do the same if I were in their shoes, they heavily rely not on the land itself, but actually on the surrounding waters of the island. As just like the terrestrial life, the marine life of Komodo Island is extreme and unique, mainly because it's part of the Coral Triangle, resulting in extensive coral reefs, plus seagrass beds, seamounts, and mangroves, leading to a variety of aquatic animals calling the waters home. For example, dugongs, cetaceans, whale sharks, rays, seahorses, and octopi are just some of the animals found in the waters, while reef sharks are commonplace too. And it's believed that in total, the area is home to at least 1,000 different tropical species of fish. And because again, this island is a reptilian one, even the reptiles have gotten in on the water action, as the infamous saltwater crocodile, the world's largest reptile and owner of the strongest recorded bite force, can be found here as well. And though I probably don't need to say this, just for clarity's sake, this is just one more animal on this island that could definitely take your life. However, that being said, it is thankfully a rare sight for the island, as it is only known to occasionally inhabit the coastal mangrove areas. While in the past though, they were more widespread and found across the entire island. But for the life still present, they should perhaps be thankful of this, because even without a giant crocodile as a potential encounter, this one-of-a-kind place has a long list of problems that they are already dealing with. And ironically, but perhaps not surprisingly, this problem has to do with the antagonist of King Kong. In other words, us. Just like how we kind of spoiled Skull Island, we are basically doing the same thing to Komodo Island, just 3 different ways. For starters, extreme plastic pollution in that part of the world, and from tourists to the island, impact both the marine and coastal life, as the reefs have become entangled in plastic, while then it also litters the mangroves and beach lines. Then, rising sea levels exacerbated by climate change and human presence has not only diminished the actual size of land, but has also limited the amount of habitable space for many walks of life, Komodo dragons included, who actually are currently classified as endangered. And based on the worst case models, it could be that in just 24 years, that over 70% of their livable area will no longer exist. Not to mention that in the meantime, they also have to deal with illegal poachers who occasionally either kill them or capture them for the very illegal pet trade, all of which takes a toll. Then another illegal activity, illegal fishing, is also extensive in this area, especially fishing that involves using something known as dynamite. So unsurprisingly, one of the most harmful kinds of illegal fishing at that. And so naturally, with all this stress, there are major concerns that the magic of Komodo Island is on a clock, and that without serious intervention, it may strike midnight sooner rather than later. And frankly, I at least would rather have the option to see this place for real than for it to become the next fictional island that only exists in stories. So, fingers crossed. Thanks for watching, and until next time.